How do you know what notes to play when soloing? How can you learn song by ear without having perfect pitch? This is the 20% theory that will get you 80% there. So grab your guitar and play along. I am literally reading from my free Essential Guitar Theory PDF. You can grab it in the description. Let's go. Even if you only play metal, learning open chord shape is the best way to start to understand how the neck works and how chord shapes fit together. We start with the A shape. Then we have the C shape. Next, the D shape. The E shape. And finally, the C shape. Notice that I'm saying shape and not chords, because this shape can be used to play any chords that you like. For example, the F. The F is an E-shaped chord, right? E, F. So that's why it's not called an F shape. It's called an E shape, because the E shape is the closest to the nut that I could play this chord with. Which leads us to the cage system. This is going to teach you where the root is on the 6th and 5th string, but also the 3rd and 5th notes of every chord. You remember all of the shapes we saw earlier? So we start with the C shape for the C chord. The C shape leads into the A shape, right? Still a C. The A shape feeds into the G shape, which feeds into the E shape, and finally the D shape. It's a little tricky to play, right? You might have noticed that when my root is on the 5th string, I can play a C shape, and with the same root, an A shape. And when the root is on the 6th string, I can play a G shape or an E shape, right? So if you know 2 roots, you know 4 chords. All that's left is the D shape that's always very close to the E shape, using that root on the 4th string. So now let's move on to the D, starting with the D shape that feeds into the C shape, and then the A shape, then the G shape, and finally the E shape. Now the E. What comes after E? It's D. I hate playing that. Then the C shape, the A shape, and the G shape. Now let's do a barred chord like an F, right? Start with the E shape, then the D shape, feeding into the C shape. What am I doing? Feeding to the A shape, then the G shape. Starting to feel a bit cramped up here, but it's all right. Now the G. The G feeds into the E, which feeds into the D, into the C, and finally in the A shape. Now the A. A feeds into G, into E shape, into D shape, into the D shape, and finally C shape. Power chords are a staple of every heavier music genres. What makes them so powerful is the absence of 3rd in the chord. Let's take B for example. Here's my 3rd. If I delete it, all I got is root, 5th, and the octave, another root. Right? Sounds more modern. Some people, me included, sometimes just play the root and the 5th. The 3rd is what gives this quality to the chord, right? There's a G major. It's lifting, right? If I play G minor, if I play G5 or a power chord, right, it sounds more neutral. and modern. There is what we call alternate power chords that actually use the third. If you listen to Megadeth, you've heard stuff like stuff like this, with it's usually the root and the third. Sometimes with the fifth. So let's say I've got a D using the C shape. You could play it like this. Then the same D using the G shape. How about minor? Using the C minor shape or the G minor shape. Other popular ones are the sus2 power chords, right? Instead of the octave, you're playing the second degree. Then there's also the sharp 5, right? This is my 5. Sharp 5, played with the octave or without. Just 2 notes. Now the point of learning scales is not exactly to play them at lightning speed. It's to know where the notes are, and more importantly, what chords can be played within that scale. Now in Western music, from even pop to metal, we're basically using minor pentatonic, major pentatonic, the major scale, which some people call the Ionian mode, and the minor scale, aka the Aeolian mode, or natural minor. So let's start with every guitar player's favorite scale, the E minor pentatonic. So I got my root, third, fourth, fifth, 7, and another root. So I'm gonna play it through all 5 positions so you understand how these 5 boxes work together. This is position 1. Position 2. Position 3. Position 4. And finally position 5. The cool thing about guitar is that, unlike piano, for example, every scale or every key of a scale is going to have the same pattern. Only the starting position of the neck is going to change. For example, let's look at A minor. My root on the 6th string is on the 5th fret. So here's position 1. Right? You notice it's exactly the same pattern as my position 1 of the E minor. It doesn't matter what it is. F sharp minor, A flat, D, right? Every minor scale is going to look the same. Now let's look at the G major pentatonic and why I never practice it. Here's position 1. Notice anything cool? Yeah, it's exactly the same as my second position of the E minor pentatonic. Every major chord has its minor relative. It's always 3 frets away. So E minor and G have the exact same notes in their scale. Now we've already unlocked a fair amount of the fretboard, but the minor scale is going to fill in the rest of the gaps. Now with the E minor pentatonic, we had root, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7, another root. Now we're adding 2 and 6. I got root, 2, 3rd, 4th, 5, 6, and 7. Now you see those 5 boxes that we had earlier? Well, you can use these same boxes and just add those 2 notes. Now again, let's look at the A minor scale. Position 1 is exactly the same as position 1 of the E minor scale, right? And yeah, you've probably guessed it, that G major scale, exactly the same as that E minor scale. So how do you know which chords to play then? Well, using our trusty E minor scale, let's find out. Let's look at the notes and the number that they have in the scale. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In a minor scale, 1 is of course minor. 4 just underneath is also minor. And the 5 is minor. The 2 is also a minor, but let's leave it for later. So 3 is major. Underneath, my 6 is major, and my 7. Some of you might already have noticed this pattern, right? This triangle between the root, the 4th, and the 5th. You see this triangle or this L, icy triangles? The same thing happens 3 frets away. 3, 6, and 7. Remember this L. So it doesn't matter what you're playing. You're playing B flat minor, where's the 1 minor, the 4 minor, the 5th minor. Where's the 3rd? Here. Same shape. Major, major, major. So what about that 2nd degree, right? You will not hear that often in pop, metal, country. It's mostly in jazz and classical. It's a 2nd with a flat 5. The Locrian mode. What if we switch things around and think in major, like the G? Well, same. 1, 4, 5, or major. 2, 3, and 6 are minor. And that weirdo is now our 7. Now, if you want to go a step further, you learn triads. Now, you already know most of those, actually, from learning the cage system. Well, let's say A. Remember that G shape? I got root, 3rd, and 5th. Well, that's your triad, or your chord tone. And because you know these shapes already, you don't have to learn all of these notes by heart. Just knowing the shape will get you really far. One way that you can practice this to remember the triads without memorizing all of them notes is just finding the roots. Let's say in A, like where's my root on the 6th string here? On the 5th string? On the 4th? On the 5th? On the 2nd, I'm starting to run out of strings here. Let's play 2 notes on the 1st string, right? So just by memorizing the roots, I know 3 notes. I know root, 3rd, and 5th all over the fretboard. I mean, it's cool to know every note, right? But remember, baby steps. Just learning the roots will get you really far if you can place the 3rd and the 5th. Eventually, you can learn to name them, the notes, but you don't have to. I'll give you a bonus tip on how I like to practice those. Instead of going through all of the A's all over the fretboard, I go 1 key at a time. Starting with C, this is called the circle of 5th. So let's focus on 1 string, the 6th string. I can play C, G, D, A, E, B, I can play G flat up here. Let's do here. D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, finally F. If you practice this a few times, from the 6th string to the 2nd string, before long you're gonna know your fretboard. So grab the free PDF in the description below. I appreciate you guys watching the whole thing, and I hope you got a lot from it. Thanks for watching. Cheers.